This is R&B, R&B. Yeah, this is R&B, R&B podcast, yeah. Welcome back. You know what it is. R&B podcast with Blake and Russ. Switched it up on you, huh? Thank you all for listening, and thank God for giving us the opportunity to be here to have another discussion. Episode 2, Season 2. You know what it do, Russ.
Yeah. We're recording a little late tonight because we're both watching Game 5 of the NBA Finals. Denver Nuggets are the 2023 world champions. You know, it was pretty cool to see that brand of basketball and the teamwork that they showed this postseason. You know, it's always great to see the game played the right way. So it's inspiring, you know, to a young man like me.
Yeah, both teams played hard. The Nuggets been rock solid for like the last 7 games, locked in. Definitely should take some notes. Anyone that wants to perfect anything, look at the production that they were able to make, right? The consistency with all of the lights, all of the fans, all of hundreds of millions of people watching, right? The pressure didn't make them fall off of the journey, and they trusted the process, they trusted their teammates, they trusted themselves, ended up with the victory. They're champions. And so many people wish to attain that. A lot of guys in that game been working a long time to get that right. Aaron Gordon, for instance.
Yeah.
And so when you have a vision, it's very important for you to make that vision part of your reality. Some people have dreams and they're never able to bring it into their reality by making plans and making it realistic, right?
Yeah.
But all it does, or all it requires, is you making a plan for those dreams to become a realistic vision for you to obtain, especially if it's something that someone else has done before. That's what I try to tell people. You can't limit yourself to think that tasks that have already been accomplished are not within your reach, because other people are expecting and planning and accomplishing things that haven't ever been done before. So the least you can do is know that the things that have already been mapped out by someone else, you can just follow those steps and accomplish. But you can do so much more than that also.
Yeah, you know, and another part of watching that game that was really inspiring to me, and one of the reasons why I love basketball, is that the minute the fourth quarter was over, the season was over, and I was scrolling through Instagram and saw Damian Lillard post a video of him working out, and I'm thinking like, man, it's back to zero. Everybody has the opportunity now to put in the work and to see if they're going to be the champion next year. And that's the best part about the game. You know, you're bringing up the fact that there's so many people in the world and we all have these dreams and everything. But with basketball, you know, we create the time period. There's 4 12-minute quarters in the NBA game, and we as humans created that and gave those minutes meaning. Now, we love it because there is so much meaning within those minutes. That's why every single act that happens is huge on our emotional registration. But if you think about it, the time period is really man-made and doesn't really reflect reality. Right. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're bought in so much, because we create this finite thing that feels so real.
And you know that it's finite, right?
Yeah.
You're more aware of it, and that makes it more exciting. But when you think about life being finite, that's not really an exciting thought, right?
Not to me.
Yeah.
I know some people feel like they would love to live forever, and if they could find that fountain of youth that could give them infinite life, they would love it. That's not me. I like to see my finality of life as a motivation to move on from things and not take things as serious. You know, if I had forever to live, I might not move the same way. I really wouldn't want those circumstances.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at that. So you would feel like you wouldn't have enough pressure if you could live forever.
Yeah, because what's the point of not putting things off if I could always come back to it? But if I know that I have a
procrastinator.
deadline, exactly, and that's why they'll say, you know, that anxiety of deadline and procrastination ends up pushing people to get things done. If you didn't have that, then, you know, I don't think I would probably work as hard. So I like the idea that it's going to end.
And stress leads to success. But, you know, even with those situations, you know, we stress about these things and we try to make ourselves uncomfortable because we know that that's going to come with a reward and it's going to help us grow. But those things that we do tend to stress about in the grand scheme of existence usually are not very significant if you think about it, right?
Mm-mm.
And so that brings us to discussion today of our human insignificance within the universe and then our significance of our individual reality. So we all have our own reality, our own perception, our own lives, right? You can't really explain your perception and reality to someone else. We try to have these societal norms and discussions and descriptions so that we can all relate to one another, but there's no way for me to put on goggles and see life through Russ's eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way for me to really know if my green looks the same as yours, you know?
Yeah.
And for that to be something that we all deal with daily, but still are able to have this collective consciousness that I believe in, is quite amazing. And so your piece in this journey is important. Do you believe in the butterfly effect?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I believe that there's all types of butterfly effects happening, across our timeline, our space-time continuum. And I believe that there's also intelligence to it.
So to explain the butterfly effect, if you're not familiar, for example, step on a butterfly and there's a tsunami that happens on the other side of the world, right? You're changing time by manipulating things. So your decisions all matter. If you decide not to do something, something will happen. If you decide to do something, something will happen.
Right. Like I was saying, we love sports because if you make a mistake in the first quarter, it could matter to the final result. In life, sometimes we don't see our decisions as mattering to a final result, but they do.
Yeah.
It's the same concept.
Yeah.
Something that you do today can result in something positive in 10 years, and a decision you make today can result in something detrimental.
Yeah. So I hope people can keep up with us as we change like the scales of time and what we're talking about, right?
I'm sure they will, because I believe in the soul, and all of our souls understand the concept that we're trying to illustrate. So I believe that on kind of a vibrational level that it'll resonate with people.
With the open mind, right? Because we all feel some sort of disconnection in the world, right? Everyone goes through a period where you might feel kind of lost or out of place, and that's because you are kind of alone, but we're all alone together, right? So for one person to feel like they're walking this journey without any assistance, you have to remember we're all doing this same walk, and we do affect each other's actions. So your perception is strong enough to alter the realities of other people.
Correct.
So the people that are able to think in that way have a whole lot of power, and they're extremely confident, and they understand that their personal reality is going to be whatever they want it to be. You know, they can choose to be happy. They can choose to work out daily. They can choose to follow a routine, make all of these conscious decisions that are going to lead to a goal. Yeah. And then they also realize that if they do things consistently in their interactions with other people, that they can gain trust or, gain respect or develop a relationship that's going to give them another benefit down the road that will help them with their vision as well. So you interconnect these realities and these paths and these perceptions to try to develop your own. So again, they're separate, but they're connected.
Yeah. And I believe what you're saying as well, that's kind of a knowledge of the consciousness and your awareness. I believe as well that there are people that use that to create positivity, but then there's also the super intellectual person who uses it to create strife in the world.
Right.
You think of The Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter, for example. It's like he's this super conscious genius who is almost understanding all these nonverbal cues in people, and he's crawling under their skin and manipulating their reality to almost drive them crazy, knowing how dangerous he is. So it is true. You can get that level of awareness and so beautiful things, but also I believe that's why we have prisons, and sometimes people get that same intelligence to try to hurt people, so they have to be removed.
Yeah. And again, our reality is some people have the intelligence, but their perception of our cross sections in this reality is not quite what it needs to be as far as the structure of society, right?
Yeah, and some people want to go down in infamy. That's just a part of our reality, is that some people are like, I'm not going to try to be great. I'm going to try to go down in infamy. I'm going to try to do the most outrageous, horrific thing I can to be remembered for.
Yeah.
You know, because we're talking about life being finite, but our works do outlast our life. So you can have an institute that's named after you, or we could take the Egyptians. You could have a pyramid that represents your culture that's lasting thousands and thousands of years. Or you could have the story about the terrible stuff that you did. And it goes down in history that way.
Again, the butterfly effect, right? We're all creating our own footprint. And the longer we're making decisions, the more of this snowball effect there is of the decisions that we've made. So, you know, I think that some of those people that end up being in prison and don't have a grasp on what we consider to be reality and what you should be doing as a good human being, they might realize that nothing really matters, right? What the grand scheme of the whole universe, yes, we affect things here on Earth, but the Earth is one planet in the solar system, the galaxy, and the universe, the ever-expanding universe. How many trillion, hundreds and millions of trillions of square feet that space is versus like the 1,500 square feet I live in my house, right? You put things on scale, it's just not even a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
So when we're making these decisions, some people are like, well, it's arbitrary. And I think that's why, you know, people grapple with their purpose and whether or not they should even be living, right? But there's so much opportunity. And we've talked about probability before. A lot of people don't get a chance to leave a footprint. So every day that you have is such a blessing, you know? So you do have to think of your experience and that significance, and then the experience of the people that are at least around you. And then if you really want to expand that outreach, you go travel the world and talk to people, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's why traveling is such a blessing, and being able to see into other people's perspectives and realities, because the variety just gets more and more vast as you get out of your comfort zone in your community. And some people never leave their communities, but there's still, even within a community, so many different perspectives and realities and consciousness that you can interact with and try to empathize and understand. So there's so many different routes and options and ways you can go about trying to educate yourself on how people think and how people live and really what your purpose is within this world. And I really don't think there's any right or wrong way to go about doing that, but the effort just has to be there.
Yeah, you know, and you bring up how people get to that point of knowing that nothing really matters. That's kind of an idea that you have to work towards. That's kind of Ecclesiastes, where you get into life is ephemeral and fleeting. That's in the Bible. You know, you kind of work towards getting to that point of recognizing that all these works you do are fleeting. But that, without some type of redeeming idea behind that, creates a nihilistic philosophy sometimes in young people, because that can get you to the point where you're like, wow, nothing matters. All these things that I'm doing are all for naught. So then you gotta reverse that and almost think of the dualistic perspective.
Well, everything matters.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And just to veer off into some art, this is one reason on Lauryn Hill's Miseducation of Lauryn Hill album, she has a song called Nothing Even Matters. And then the very next song on that album, bro, is called Everything is Everything. So it goes from Nothing Even Matters to Everything is Everything. I always thought that was just amazing because it's the perfect contrast.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Sir also has a song called Nothing Even Matters. And a lot of these songs, you know, they talk about your relationship with people, and it does bounce back and forth between, you know, this is stressful. Like, why should I even try? Nothing matters. But also, like, I should love life and live in every moment because nothing matters, right?
Yeah, and I shouldn't take this so serious as far as the pressure I'm putting on myself to perform and be great out here.
And so that shows you that any concept, any idea can be taken as a positive or negative, right? And I hope that people aren't triggered to take this in a negative way when we say that nothing matters, because that should feel liberating, because you can do whatever you want. And I just invite you to make decisions that are not only going to be positive for you, but also positive for the other people whose realities you are affecting, because that's a powerful, I guess, privilege to have, really, when we cross paths, because someone can make the decision not to interact with you, to avoid you, and to essentially not let you have an influence on their reality and their perception. But as soon as we engage with someone else, again, the butterfly effect, that's going to change how we think about that individual or somebody that may look like them, or how we talk to anybody based on how that interaction goes, right?
Yeah.
And so many, I think, discussions and opportunities that we have on a daily basis, I think, get overlooked and not really appreciated. I have small discussions with people, such as like the shuttle driver at my travel assignment at the hospital in Oklahoma, sitting behind the bus driver, talking to him about the area he lives in, and how the weather has changed, and how he appreciates being able to have that job that he has because it's stable, right? And just being able to hear that perspective as I'm going into a COVID situation in a foreign environment, and I have these fears, but, to him, this is a really safe environment. This is a safe situation for him. So I'm like in his space and his presence, and it makes me feel kind of safer in turn. I'm like, somebody feels safe here, so I should be able to feel safe here.
Yeah.
And some people may disagree with that because you're in different environments that you're unfamiliar with, and it could be safe for that person and not safe for me. But you just have to use your discernment and give yourself the opportunity to take weight off your shoulders when it is necessary or appropriate.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of situations where we can lighten up a little bit, and we beat ourselves up, or we get so tense and so fearful of situations that are really more so opportunities than anything.
Yeah. And why do you think we tense up? Why do you think that we have those emotions and sometimes even hormonal responses to moments that we feel are significant?
We're designed to do that, the physiological response to the thoughts that we have, or the things that we see, or what we feel emotionally or physically. But the ability to manipulate those things, to anticipate those things, or even be in control of those things, having a conscious breathing, a conscious posture, being active throughout the day so that you're going to be prepared to perform when it's necessary. Now, again, those decisions that you make, you have a butterfly effect within your own world, in your reality. So all these decisions you make on a daily basis are going to go one of two ways. They're going to benefit you or be to your detriment. So when you make conscious decisions about what you're doing, when you're brushing your teeth, all right, I'm taking care of my dental health. I don't have to worry about cavities. Cool. Sometimes we just go through these motions and don't even know why we're doing things, or we don't know why we're doing things, but we don't acknowledge why we're doing things. And then that's when you get complacent, you fall out of practice, and you start overlooking or getting lackadaisical, and you might not be brushing an area that you usually brush better, right? Just to give an example. But again, with people getting an autopilot when they're doing things like going to work, you're not paying attention, you have a car accident because you're not aware. And so that awareness is always going to be so valuable. But in many situations, awareness can also turn into a paranoia or a restraint or a restriction. Right?
Yeah, because you might become aware that you are creating chaos around you. You know what I'm saying? If you raise your awareness and then you become aware that you're in a chaotic state, that's going to bring anxiety. But it also brings with it demands of what you need to do to get that situation in order. That's kind of how somebody who wants to be responsible and take action in their life would think about it. But you could become aware and be like, oh my gosh, all these things around me are crazy. I'm not living how I want. The state around me is wild. My own home is wild. You understand. And that's an archetypal story, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they put that eye of Horus on the dollar bill. That's a symbol that represents awareness to the state literally. Like when it comes to the ancient story, and then that's why it's on our bill, is because we're supposed to be aware of the functionings of the state that we're in.
Right. And so many people don't even know what the Ivoris is, or aren't even aware that it's on a dollar bill, for various reasons. But
Sure.
again, paying attention to detail and having that awareness can be very significant to basically anybody. And I think that, as we try to develop our perspective of the world that we live in, we just have to understand that when we do things to act out of fear, it's never really going to benefit us. Some people do perform well under pressure, but a lot of times you're going to make mistakes or be too hasty in your decision making in those situations. But if you again think of how vast this universe is and how minuscule my experience is. For instance, over the weekend, I did a little grand opening event for a friend's business, and I had to speak to like 12 people, right? And so initially you're like, oh, I have to talk in front of people, and you do get like little butterflies. And then I sat there and thought to myself, I'm like, I used to do spirit assemblies in front of like 1,000 kids.
Yeah.
And that made me nervous, but I would still do it because I knew it was fun for me, and I knew that it would benefit me to have those public speaking experiences. And so I remember I'd be in the stage and be getting the music going and try to get the crowd engaged, and I'm sitting there sweating profusely, like super nervous. But, I wouldn't let my voice quiver. I would make sure that I projected my voice, and I would make sure that I standed confidently and tried to look at as many people as possible in the eye. And those were just skills that I was developing at the time that I didn't even realize how valuable they were. And a lot of people, their perception of me and my presence in their reality was this confident person who was doing these very extroverted, outgoing things. And at the same time, there was a part of me that was really fearful in those situations. But I played football. I would do a lot of things that were scary to me. I would be afraid going up against 300-pound dudes on the football field, but I still do it because after I do it, I felt like I was invincible,
You conquered the fear.
Yeah. And again, also with that, I always had God on my side. I have this faith, and that took so long to develop because I felt like I needed to be able to describe and explain my faith to someone else. But there's no reason for me to need to do that. We want to label things and try to identify with a religion and try to have other people be able to relate to our relationship with God. But that's not really necessary, So if you're able to do that and share that experience with someone, cool. But that's not really the purpose. It's not really the purpose. So you think about the whole universe and you think about your one perception, your one perspective. The most important thing you can do if you are a person of faith is just make sure that you believe in your relationship with the higher power.
Yeah.
And that's so strong because it gives you a purpose and it gives you a place in this vast world and time of nothing. That's everything. And there's actually a movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it's about like multiverse dimensional stuff. But being able to really understand and believe in scientific concepts but also be a spiritual being and believe in God, I think is like the most powerful thing you could do for yourself. And a lot of people want to separate the two, right? You can't believe in the Big Bang Theory and believe in Adam and Eve, like evolution, and believe in Moses and Noah and the Great Ark. Like, those things can be intertwined if you want them to be in your reality, in your world, because you can.
I believe
the
so.
stories are there, the science is there, the following is there with the religions, the research is there with the science. So why not believe in both of those?
Sure, and the miracles are there every single day in your own life.
Yeah, every day.
Yeah, and the reason I'm labeling that as a miracle, and I think that this is going to help guide us back into the topic of conversation, is because when you get into the vastness of the universe and how many people are here, how many planets are here, how many galaxies are here, it feels like there shouldn't be order. It looks chaotic.
Right.
But every day, and I believe if you reflect on your life through the years, you'll see that there was almost a chain happening to keep trying to push you back into growing into your highest self, almost as if you're like a plant in this world who is growing towards the sun. Without much of your will. You have the will to say, am I going to keep being afraid? Am I going to not go speak in front of the people? Am I just going to stay home because it sounds scary, which some people choose to do?
Right.
But ultimately, the universe and their circumstances are going to keep pushing them back to places to try to grow them to be their best self.
Yeah. And then so now what I do, I ask myself, why am I fearful in certain situations? And then I think about the science.
Man,
I think about the science. And it may sound crazy, but what if our universe was a speck of dust?
Whoville.
I think it's a very realistic possibility. You think about it, what's a cell? What's an atom? What's a quark? Do you know what a quark is? Look it up. A quark is, I believe, the smallest thing that we can measure. So
yeah, you're getting into metaphysics now, for sure.
Into metaphysics. And so quarks are something that we can't see with our eyes, but we believe in them because someone did the research and they saw it with their super microscope, but nobody else is able to see it with their own eyes. But we believe it because it's in a book.
Right. They talk about quantum leaps.
But my question is then what about God?
Right. And that's where it gets weird. We believe it because we believe in the intelligence and the authority of science more than we believe in. Well, I don't want to say we. I don't want to make an absolute statement, but as a society, we believe more. Then we believe more in the authority of science than we believe in the divine grace of God.
Yeah. And we say we as a people, not like me and Russ, right?
Yeah.
But it's a collective. I feel like we should all be on the same page at some point. Even though we all have these separate perspectives and realities, we are all trying to figure out this same little piece to the puzzle, right?
Yeah, and you know what you're describing right now is technically what they would say in the Bible is the kingdom of God. That's like the kingdom of God is when everybody is on the same page about what forces are acting upon them and what grace is working from their birth and conception to help them out.
Yeah.
Right? I heard this lady on an Instagram reel talking about how she's a normal woman, but she believes in the grace and is following God, and she's seeing all these miraculous things happen in her life. But she doesn't want people to hear her story and say, wow, God is favoring her. It's no, I'm just aware of what's happening right now, but you have the same exact access that I do.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people, basically, I like to joke that I'm God's favorite because I've heard other people just say that, and we can all be God's favorite because we all have our own reality, right?
Yeah, and that's not something sweet. We kind of talked about in the last episode, they say that cliche, God gives the hardest struggles to the strongest soldiers, and so it's not all sweet when you want to say, oh wow, I'm getting these great things, because right around the corner is another test, and you're gonna have to keep showing up for those tests over and over again, and that can get exhausting.
It can.
But what are you growing to be?
Yeah, something much greater, something that you don't understand until you're walking in those shoes. So you just have to have faith that these struggles and these obstacles that you're overcoming are going to lead into something greater, because they will. That's just how it works. You don't persevere and go through adversity and have accomplishments and develop awareness and do good deeds to people and have no reward. That's just not. Even if you were struck by a car the next day, there is a reward in your impact and what you did for these other people in their walks. And that's why selflessness is so important, because we get so caught up in what we're doing for ourselves that we do get fearful if we died tomorrow, because then it ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're influencing other people's realities and you are leaving your mark, whether it's a legacy with your children or just being kind enough to hold a door open for somebody and they're going to remember that you did something selfless for them, those things add up. Again, butterfly effect, very real concept. And once you realize that your insignificance is significant enough for you to go make an effort, then you will render yourself capable of so many more things.
Man, and as you're saying that, it makes me think. You watch these interviews or read these stories about people who have committed homicides in society, and they'll say that when they murdered somebody and then they got this horrific feeling, they're throwing up, their heart rate is going crazy and they're getting chills and sweats, and it changes their whole life because they can't forget this image of the person that they killed and all these different things. And that, for some reason, is a consequence of, for a lot of people, when they take a life. But the opposite is true. Like you're saying, being selfless. When you're doing good deeds towards people, that same kind of phenomena is then reversed, right? You get an overwhelming sense of gratitude. You get an overwhelming sense of peace. It's the opposite of when you hurt somebody, you help somebody.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting how that law kind of works in our social interactions.
Yeah, I've never thought of that. I know that I would never intentionally take someone's life, and the pure joy that I had of bringing a life into this world, I can think of the polar opposite and how awful that would be, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I always talk about how selfless of an act it is to have children and to raise children and to get in a committed relationship and do that as a joint venture, right? And again, that's just the polar opposite of destruction and taking of lives, and building a family, building your community, building your reality, and helping another adult to do that, and also guiding a child into doing that as well. And then in the process, helping other people that you interact with walk a similar walk. And, you know, I do still get nervous when I talk in front of people. I get a little nervous sitting in front of the camera, but I do know every time I speak, at least one person is going to feel like it was really significant and really important that they heard me speak, right? And that I guess perspective I used to think of as being a little conceited or like full of myself or thinking that I am more important, but I think that everyone's words have significance. And if you have thoughts that you've thought about deeply enough and you've done research and tried to learn yourself, then sharing that with other people and giving them the opportunity to do the same thing, I think is one of the most selfless things you could do. Because it's very easy for me to just work on myself, not worry about everybody else. Like, oh, don't mess up my vibe. Like, I'm on a roll here. Like, I don't have time for you, you know, because I'm making this momentum and I would have to get off track to try to bring you along. But I want everybody to be at the top with me, whether it's a stranger or not. If you're trying to spread positive vibes too, I know what I'm going to do. I know what I want to do. And I know the people that are going to help me, and I know the people that I'm going to help. And anybody that wants to join the team, come on along. If you're going to continue to do the right thing along with us, then I think that we crossed paths for a reason in this vast universe.
Yeah, and I'm sure, like myself, you know plenty of people that feel that way. You know, they met you, they started talking to you, and they're just like, man, we were meant to connect. We were meant to talk. God has a plan for you. God has a plan for us. There's plenty of people, older, younger. It's so random in my life when I meet people that are on that level of understanding. And since it does happen, it combats all the times where I'm just like, oh man, this person's not feeling me, or this group isn't feeling me. J. Cole has that line where he says, sometimes I ponder whether this matters, putting substance in a world that's so used to instant gratification. And it's interesting that he thinks that, because he has a lot of lyrics that are very deep and thought-provoking, but it's almost like he sit back and thought, wow, why am I trying to put all this deep stuff into a world that just wants microwaved information and instant gratification? Well, it's because 1 out of every 1,000 people possibly are going to vibe with it.
Yep.
And now you're living and you have your purpose filled. So I definitely understand it.
Yeah. We get really caught up on ratios and analytics and numbers and percentages. You want a certain amount of followers on social media. You want a certain percentage of engagement. But really, if one person thinks that your content is engaging and it's changing their life, you should feel a lot of pride in that, because that one person could go on to change the world. Some people think they're supposed to change the world. You might inspire someone else to change the world or change the universe. Like who inspired Elon Musk to want to go to Mars, right?
Right.
It didn't start with him. These are compounding ideas of this collective consciousness that we have. And that's why it's so important for us to develop ourselves and share the information and the knowledge and the love so that it can continue to compound and grow at an exponential rate. And then we don't have to worry about hatred wiping out humanity in like a nuclear fight or something, because we're all going to be aware that wouldn't make any sense for us to be making those kind of decisions.
Yeah. It's funny because Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's an astrophysicist that most people know, probably listen to him. He talks about how we are pompous and arrogant with our belief that we have the ability to destroy the world with our nuclear weapons. He is like, we're nowhere close to have enough power to actually destroy this earth because it is huge and it's its own life itself.
So not destroy the earth, but destroy all the living things on the earth.
Think about that, though. Every living thing on the earth.
All of the aerobic life forms.
Okay.
Things that breathe oxygen.
Has that ever been possible, though? Even with the impact of meteors and things that supposedly ended the life before, it never actually took everything out.
No, not everything, because then everything would be gone right now.
And I don't believe that it's possible for anything to destroy everything.
But nuclear warfare is something that's new to the last 100 years.
I think it would take out all of the populated areas that we feel are the inhabited places, but I don't think that man could make anything that could destroy this whole world.
I hope that you're right, but I also am on board with the idea that technology is growing at an exponential rate, not only with computing technology, but with warfare.
Okay.
So you think about the first guns loading up gunpowder in a single shot, and now we have Hellfire missiles and nuclear weapons. And so as of January 2023, there are estimated to be 12,512 nuclear warheads in global stockpiles.
And does it say that that is enough to destroy our world?
No, but one nuclear warhead can destroy how much land? And then this might be a little bit off topic and a little bit morbid, but it's relevant. I want to talk about how significant not only technology is, but our minds. I do believe that right now, me and Russ are having a discussion that people were not capable of having 500 years ago. Because we're part of evolution.
Yeah.
I say all the time, watching these high school kids play sports, I'm like, wow, kids are evolving. And it's really happening. We're watching evolution before our eyes. For a 16-year-old to be able to take off from the free throw line and dunk when that was something that we were amazed by a 30-year-old doing 30 years ago.
That's true.
Yeah. That's something kind of significant. This is giving a whole lot of information here. So, one bomb can blast about 2 square miles. Okay, so if you do 2 square miles times 12,500, 25,000 square miles with a radius of radiation and long-term effects and killing off vegetation. So I think you're right.
Yeah, I'm saying I got this from Neil deGrasse Tyson.
All right, Neil. You win again, Neil.
He did the calculations. And I just think it's good to think about because, like I'm saying, it's almost like an arrogant thing. We feel as if we could really affect this being that's way bigger. And
hey, I got exposed on camera. I'm arrogant.
No, but we are.
You
know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because, and it only makes sense, once again, a lot of the ancient hieroglyphs, a lot of the ancient pictures and mounds, monuments are all trying to express that there's importance to the culture and people that did it.
Yeah.
And there is importance, but time took them out.
Right.
And eventually time will probably turn their hieroglyphs to dust.
Right.
Right? So we battle this desire to feel like we matter with the fact that time is going to kind of turn it all to dust.
Yeah. But now we live in this digital era, right? So it's like, as long as the internet can stay up, which I saw Neil deGrasse Tyson post something about solar flares and the possibility of the internet going out for like multiple years and what that would look like.
Right.
So, different rabbit hole. There are infinite possibilities in our world. We're living this endless line of uncertainty, and that can be very scary. Some people fear everything. There's a lot of scary things going on all the time because new things are happening, and we have fear of the unknown, naturally so, because we don't know what to expect. It could be something awful, but it could be something amazing. And a lot of times it does end up being something amazing. And that's why we are able to sit here and do things like this as a result of all the awful things that happen, right?
Man, at all the awful things that happen.
Yeah.
And that's what's so beautiful about all this daily walk. And when I think back to what my family taught me when I was little and my grandparents, and I'm thinking about my grandma, she was raised by people not too far removed from slavery who all kept this optimistic view of what we can do with our individual faith. And when we remove fear from our walk, it's like, come on, that shouldn't have been possible.
Right.
You know, it really shouldn't have been possible, but it is. And it's creating just amazing descendants and more people who are trying to just tap into not being afraid and developing themselves into their highest self.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. And not only the accomplishments of our ancestors and what they go through should be empowering for us moving forward, but our own accomplishments. I have, certain clients that at times they have issues with self-confidence, and I just like to remind them of all the things that they've done leading up to this point. You know, most of my clients are college graduates and, business owners and professionals. I have clients that are lawyers and doctors, and even those people, sometimes feel like, oh, I'm at a plateau, like I'm not progressing enough. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's put this into perspective. If you really want to compare, I'll lay it straight for you, because you are amazing. You've done amazing things that other people can't do. Oh, no, like what I've done, like it's not that hard. Like, stop downplaying yourself, okay? Because, yes, there are people that have done 100 times more, but there are people that have not even touched a fraction of what you've done. And this is your reality. So if you want this to be amazing, let it be amazing. But you're sitting here choosing to downplay and choosing to make yourself minute and minuscule and insignificant, then you do lose your place in this universe, and you do lose your direction, and you do lose your drive to continue. But you have to make your own purpose and be your own motivator. We like to rely on other people, like, yeah, you're doing a good job. Like, I'm proud of you. Keep it up.
Yeah.
We need to be able to do that for ourselves.
Have to.
Because when people tell us that, they don't even really know how much work we're putting in.
Yeah.
Nobody's sitting there with you every minute of the day, watching you actually take notes, watching you watch videos, read books, have conversations, inquire about anything. They see a little snapshot, and then they have their perception and their opinion. So whether somebody's giving you a compliment or giving you criticism, you take it with a grain of salt, and at the end of the day, you rely on your own judgment and your own evaluation of how you are performing.
Yeah, I always try to remember the words of, it's not what you do, but it's how you do it. Because eventually we're going to look up and we're all going to have the money we desire and the things we want, all these types of things, the titles we want and the accolades. We're going to get that as we stay on course. But what about your practice, and what about the work that you do is helping you feel fulfilled at the end of the day? And that's where it comes into the how you do it,
Yeah, yep. And it's funny you say that, because everybody likes to say, money can't buy happiness. And Dr. Boyce Watkins disagrees with that, because he's someone who has spent a lot of time developing his financial stability, and in turn it's given him the flexibility to do the things that make him happy, right? And so again, that's perception. We like to demonize money, but at the same time rely on it for every single thing that we do.
Sure. And as I'm mastering a skill and removing fear from my life, of course I'm going to be rewarded with resources because, you know, I'm being courageous. And our system rewards courage.
Right.
You know, it rewards courage, and especially when you're being safe and doing it within legal parameters.
It's funny because as you said that, my mind went to it rewards risk. You said courage, I thought risk, but then you said safe. Right.
What I meant was just if you were doing it legally. That's what I meant by safe.
Okay.
Making sure that you're not being courageous to like harm somebody to get the resources or doing something illegal.
Gotcha.
Because it does take a lot of courage to do those things. You know.
But it's interesting. We talk again about people that land in prison, and you know their minds, their perceptions, and they might not think that laws are significant. Because again, how long have the laws been in place? Who made the laws? Like, what thought process went behind it, right? I personally like laws. I agree with laws because it maintains the order that you mentioned. It's almost I mean, it is amazing that we even have any order in this world of chaos and random things happening, right?
And we work very hard to maintain that order.
Right. And people get upset by the maintenance.
For sure. They do get upset by the maintenance, but when something like COVID happens, they lose their marbles because a little bit of chaos was, well, kind of a lot, but technically on a grand scheme, a little bit of chaos was brought into their life. You know, and that's where you can sit back and still be thankful, you know, to be in the country you're in and the situation you're in, because order is happening.
Right.
To an extent.
Yeah. Because the world is crazy. But it would be hard for it to be any more well kept than it is.
And that's the thing. If you really want to be cynical, which I have for a lot of years in my life, been super cynical and questioned all these things, but what system technically would produce more order?
Right.
And if you feel like you know that, please hit us up so you can be a guest and explain.
I'll put you on my ballot
real
quick.
Explain to us what system you believe could be better. You know, I have my ideas of how people could feel more like they're part of the group. I don't necessarily like the individualistic grind because it does leave some people out to dry. But at the same time, I do love when I see like a young person start to reap the rewards from their stuff, and they are like, wow, I put in a whole bunch of work and now it's actually showing.
Yeah. And again, it's all about perception, right? Because we never know somebody's motives or really the path of how they got to where they were. They may share some details, right? And then once they get there, their perception changes, right? Once we get to our destination and we achieve what it is we work for, our drive changes, our motivation, and our next goal is different. And essentially, it's life-changing when you hit those stages, right?
Yeah.
And recently, I've been kind of feeling internally when I hit another stage, when I find this next level of peace, this next level of understanding or comfort with myself and my actions on the daily. I used to really beat myself up a lot in situations where I was trying to do the right thing. I was trying to help someone and it just didn't turn out the way that I wanted, right? But intention is very powerful. And I think we've talked before about intention and how we should, you know, give people some grace, some slack when they have good intentions. But again, with perception, the only true intentions we know or understand are those of ourselves. And that's why it's so important for us to have that self-love and that self-confidence so that when we make decisions, we know, at least I tried to do the right thing. At least I put that effort in. You know, next time I'll clean it up and it'll be better, but I can't be mad at myself because I did the best that I could with the resources and the knowledge that I had.
Man, right? There it is. For real. You know, as we sit back and just have this dialogue about what matters and how we feel, it reminds me of how important these things are. In my life, there's been plenty of times where I felt like it was nothing but chaos and I was just in a sea of unfortunate events and don't have anything to anchor to. But it was always a conversation. It was always a conversation with someone who felt me or at least wanted to help me work out the words I was trying to say that reoriented me back into a place that felt like there was meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm always just so thankful for words, because words have always been my guidepost back to the vibes. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm a big reader. I'm a big conversationalist. Words have always helped me come back to where I needed to be.
Yeah, because when we get lost, we usually get caught up in our head, right? And we're not verbalizing, we're not articulating what we're thinking, and we're not collaborating with someone else's perception, right? Other people's perceptions can get us back on track, because it's hard to, organize all this information that we're taking in, and the changes in our ideals and our beliefs and our priorities over time. And that's something that we all have to grapple with. And so when we have those commonalities, we have to help each other out. And then once you help one person, another person's going to help you. And it ends up being kind of this cyclical fashion of us building together. And that's why it's so important to be open to conversation and have effective communication, and also be willing to network, right? Because you never know when somebody's going to come into your life and have blessings waiting for you, and be eager to share those blessings. I met somebody over the weekend. She told me, I have this networking group I meet with of small business professionals, and we like to just support each other however we can, and make sure that we're aware of each other's services, and if we can, share clients and try to build that rapport, right? And I hadn't been approached like that before, and I was a little bit taken back. I was like, wow, like she resonated enough with what I was saying to this group to, stick around and offer that to me. So that was a good reminder of how, you can have an expectation of how it's going to go when you get into a situation, and even after the fact. But again, perception and realities, you don't know what someone's takeaway is unless they come up and share it with you. And sometimes we get really caught up on, oh, wow, I hope they liked it, or I hope they didn't think this. And we can't always think about what other people are thinking, or else we're going to drive ourselves crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because another Instagram reel I saw recently was Kanye West. And he said that his mom told him when he was younger that if you always feel like you have to say the right thing, then your whole life is a test. And he just wants to speak from how he feels all the time, whether it's right or wrong. He doesn't want to feel like he's always in a test. He just wants to live. I'm like, that's some real stuff. Because if you feel like you have to be right, if you feel like everything you says has to hit home with everybody, you're putting way too much pressure on yourself, almost like you're taking the SATs.
That makes a lot of sense coming from him. And again, on a spectrum with all these things, I at first want to think, I'm a good test taker, right? But you don't want to be tested all the time, because then it does bring on this paranoia, and you don't feel like you can be genuine. But of course, certain situations, it is a test, right?
Certainly.
And you do have to be prepared to perform. And so if you never accept the test, then you're going to be faced with a lot of pushback.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm starting to think of some of the masters in the fields that I study. They approach everything they do almost as if they're playing with it, like a child. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting because at first there's that added pressure, but then as you really start to master something, you start to play with it. And when you're playing with, in my opinion, that's what I want to get to, is where everything I'm doing, I love, and I'm playing as a game.
We're all playing a game, right? And again, that makes people a little anxious, like, oh, no, life's serious. Like, you can't call it a game, and people aren't going to think it's serious, right? But it lets you realize you can win. We're all playing a game, and you have an opportunity to win.
Yeah.
Okay? It's Monopoly. We got to get around this board. And guess what? You might get the pass go 250 times.
Yeah.
Or you can get stuck over there at Boardwalk all day. But it's up to you to roll the dice.
Yeah. And removing the ideas of what other people are thinking about you is your freedom in that walk.
It's that get out of jail free card.
Man, there it is for sure.
Yeah. But, even these are things that I think about. But again, being able to articulate it and bounce them off of somebody else's perception and experience is just so valuable. So I really do hope that other people listening to this have a similar experience, because like I said, I told you we are going to get a little deep. I hope you caught up with us, and luckily you can rewind, listen as many times as you want because we're available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. You can see some clips on the gram, even see us on Anchor. But the resources here, the conversation's been had, and we've put it into the ether, and we've tried to keep the vibrations as positive as possible here on this late night. And I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah, episode 22. This is one of those podcasts that we record where I'm going to have to rewind because even as we're having this conversation, I'm like, well, I can't wait to listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
I can't wait until this is all put together so I can listen back and, you know, get deeper into what I think out here.
And we're just getting started, man.
Yep.
But again, such a blessing. You got to thank God. I know I'm impressed with me. I'm impressed with Russ. We talk about not caring too much what other people think. I do care what my mama thinks, and my mama listens to these, and she herself has seen the growth. And who else's opinion would you take other than the person that's known you as long as you've known yourself?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Same with my mom, and she knows me so well, you know, because she's seen me from the beginning. And it's funny because there's times where I don't even want to recognize something in me, and she's like, "No, that's you right there."
Right.
It makes you
I've
like,
had it too.
Man, I guess
I've had it too. And people might think it sounds corny to even look at it that way or bring that up in this certain situation, but I wouldn't be here without my mom. That's first and foremost. So always willing to give out the respect there along with God, just because there's not a bigger blessing other than the family that I've created, right? So all these things, just this compounding effect, this compounding of blessings, you know, you just got to learn to accept them and hold on to them as long as you can, because like we talked about, adversity is lurking around the corner, but we spend every day preparing ourselves, not in a paranoid fashion, but in an eager fashion, ready to grow when we are given another opportunity to do so.
That's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I appreciate y'all. I hope you know it. And like last week, we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.